Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is Rick Richards, and you are watching the don't really have a name for the show yet. Remember, we still have one more COVID crash coming up that will either be Thursday or Friday, depending on what happens in the news and the COVID virus. If there's anything new or exciting or strange or unusual that happens, we will cover it in the COVID crash. Okay. But in the meantime, we do have other interesting stuff for you. Stuff from, all walks of life, all variations, sports we're going to get into a little bit. Got to get into sports sometimes, right? And as always, the show is brought to you by Athletic Alliance, the performance-driven supplements that make you better, faster, stronger, and smarter. And I will be very happy to inform everybody that yesterday we activated the code RIC25, so anybody can go on athleticalliance.net, enter code RIC25 to get 25% off. And what did we do yesterday? We did something like $700 in sales yesterday. And also, producer Dave wants you to use his code. His code is DJ25. So you can use RIC25 or you can use DJ25. Shout out to producer Dave and Odell. But we'll see which code brings in the bucks, okay? DJ25 or RIC25. Use the RIC25. That's how you get a shout out. So yeah, good news on the website. Good news for anybody that wants to get products delivered right to their door and start living a performance-driven life, right? That's what I do. So let's do some shout outs. Shout out to my boy Jixer. Shout out to my boy Ivan. Here he is. Shout out to McGreg's, the owner of Apollo's Guard. Shout out to Dwayne and Charlene, of course. Shout out to Gymnasium. Shout out to Tammy, Sandy. Sandy was the very first customer to order online with the RIC25 code. So Sandy, you'll always have a special place in my heart, okay? And free advice from me anytime you want, okay? Shout out to Tammy and Tanya and Julia and superfan Monica. All right, let's get on to the meat of the show. Today, we are going to be looking at the biggest sporting event of 2020. What could that be? Ivan, what could the biggest sporting event of 2020 be?
The Super Bowl?
No, Ivan. No, it won't be the Super Bowl. Does anybody even remember the Super Bowl? Does the Super Bowl seem like it was 10 years ago? It does to me. It seems like it was a long time ago. The Big Four, the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball was a long time ago. All of that stuff, CFL, even the UFC. The UFC has an event coming up pretty soon, and I plan on watching it. Maybe we'll do a fight show for that. But all of that stuff seems so distant right now. But there is one event that is going to blow your mind. And it is being done by a guy that will quite literally blow your mind. Those of you who are fans of Game of Thrones will know who the Mountain is. So let's take a look. Let's initiate the rest of the audience into who is the Mountain. Actually, you know what? But first, I'm going to do a but first on you guys, okay? But first, let's look at what the Mountain is going to attempt to do. Hang on a second here. So why is this the biggest sporting event? Well, here's what's going to happen. The Mountain is going to try to lift a ton. Let's see. Do I got a calculator? Do you got a calculator on you?
Yeah, I can search up.
Okay. Ivan was going to figure out how much the Mountain is going to deadlift. Now, just so you know, the deadlift it's kind of the big dog of the test of strength, right? The deadlift is simply weights stacked on a bar, one barbell, one set of weights, one person bending down, picking the weights up and standing up straight. How much is 501 kilos? Did you find the calculator?
531.
Bing, 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 bing.
1,102 pounds, .2.
So the Mountain is going to attempt to break the deadlift record. The deadlift record And there's a lot of variations on deadlifting. Okay. There's sort of raw deadlifting where you don't wear anything except a singlet, no straps, nothing to help you, and you just lift the weight. Then there's other variations, but sometimes there's variations in bars, variations in height. But what we're talking about is straight weight on a bar, right? Just straight weight on a bar. And for the purpose of this, they can use straps and they can use a deadlift suit. A deadlift suit is essentially a really kind of stiff suit that it gives you a few extra pounds, maybe up to 50 or 60 to help straighten you out, right? That's where most of the records have been set on. I used to do powerlifting competitions myself, and I was allowed no equipment whatsoever, basically just that gait, not in a pejorative sense, not that there's anything wrong with it, looking suit, and get up there in the tights and just lift it, right? But these guys get a few extra things. So the record for the deadlift is 500 kilos. This was set by a guy named Eddie Hall, the beast, they called him. And he looks like a beast. And he did 500 kilos, which was thought to be impossible. But the mountain is going to try to break this. So first of all, let's take a look at the history of the deadlift. And then we'll get into a deeper dive on the mountain. How did this lift become so popular? The deadlift is the simplest of compounds, yet it's one of the most rewarding to perform. There's something about the grit and tenacity that comes with picking up a dead heavy weight from the ground. It's instinctual and universal. Every strength sport utilizes at least some form of the deadlift. But where did this movement come from? Well, it's difficult to put an exact finger on the origins of the deadlift. From the mid-1700s to present, we've had multiple iterations of a deadlift style movement. But in the earlier years, it wasn't universally known with a set name, and it was more or less just picking something up. Like, we don't have to get too complex with this. It's really just picking something really heavy up from the ground and standing up with it. The name deadlift itself stems from the exact meaning of the word, which is picking up a dead weight from the floor. Here's an example of somebody doing a deadlift. Listening to Black Sabbath. There you go. That is the deadlift. It's Dan Green. It goes all the way back to the 6th century. Yeah, okay, sure. Anyways, the modern iteration of the deadlift has been around for about 50 years. Powerlifting really came into its own as a kind of sport in around the mid 60s. Before that, there was Olympic lifting, and before that, there was kind of feats of strength. And strongman has really sort of come into its own. I guess it started in the late 70s. Universal Studios held the world's strongest man competition in the late 70s, and it's been a yearly event since then. And the winner of the world's strongest man is typically recognized as the world's strongest man. There's only one other contest that kind of lays claim to that, and that would be the Arnold Strongman Classic. But the mountain has won both. So he is indisputably the strongest man in the world. So let's take a look at some great deadlifters. The very first time 1,000 pounds was broken was by a man named Andy Bolton. Andy Bolton. He's from England, and he did a 1,000-pound deadlift back in, I want to say, about 20 years ago. I don't have anything of that, although I'm sure it is out there somewhere. But we're going to go to, the deadlift has really kind of taken off in the last 10 years. It's just, the numbers just keep going up and up and up. And so, first of all, we have who I consider probably the most underrated deadlifter of all time. And this is Benedict Magnusson, who, like the mountain, is from Iceland. Iceland, a country with 300,000 some odd people, seems to produce the strongest people in history over and over again. But anyways, here is Benedict Magnusson deadlifting 1,015 pounds back at the Ronnie Coleman Classic in 2011. And what's interesting about this is that he doesn't have any assistance, no straps and no suit. Let's take a watch. Yeah, look at that. There's Benny holding 1,015 pounds. Look at the bar bending. No straps, just pure grip strength, right? Right up the legs, straight up. And that to me is one of the most impressive lifts of all time. How could it not be? And like I say, he is a very underrated guy. He's only about 5'11", maybe 6 feet, and he's about 350 pounds or more. So he's a very solid, very thick guy, long arms for such a big guy, as you can see. He broke 1,000 pounds. The very first, this was essentially and is essentially the raw deadlift record. So this is a record with no assistance, like I say, no straps and no deadlifting suit, right? So let's take a look at another beast of the modern era. All right. This guy is a monster by the name of Rick DeBanks. And Rick DeBanks, you can see here, deadlifting over 500 pounds for reps. That guy is another local monster. There we are with a 600-pound competition style deadlift. There you go. No grip, no assistance, no special suits, just the weight and the bar. So deadlifting, as I say, has really taken off. And 4 years ago, Eddie Hall became the first man in history to deadlift 500 kilograms. And there's a few guys that have been chasing that record since then. Let's take a look. This is Eddie Hall right here. You can see this is a beast. 6'3", about 420 pounds when he did this. And it was, like I said, unthinkable at the time. And regardless of what happens, I think we always have to have a tip of the hat to Eddie Hall for being the first person to deadlift 500 kilos, the first, right? You can see he wears the straps on his hand to support the grip, and he's wearing a suit that kind of, it's kind of hard to see, but it's under his shirt there, but it kind of stiffens him up a little bit, right? Here's the 4 other men that have tried it. His face, Jerry Pritchett. This is Benedict Magnusson, the guy that you just saw doing the 1015 raw press. I mean, unfortunately for Benny, he's never really quite gotten back to that form. I'd say he's the closest person up until now that could have done this. But like I say, he's always just sort of come up short or just had injuries or not quite there on the day. He's a little bit older. He's about 40 years old, I think now. And he was close, wasn't he? He had it lifted, had it right about to the knees. This is the Russian, Ivan Makarov. He decided to give this a shot last year. He was getting very, very close in his training. This is the mountain, Hafthor Bjornsson, the guy who will be attempting it. And he has had the most successful attempt so far. He attempted it at the, or the closest attempt, let's say. He attempted it last year at the Arnold Classic. And this is with a different bar. This is with what's called an elephant bar. And the elephant bar is longer. And so the fact that it's longer, it changes the dynamics of the lift a little bit. So the bar bends more, and then it's a little you can get it further, so it essentially makes it a little bit easier, but then it's got a little more whip in it, which means it oscillates the bar a bit. And you can see he's close. Close. Blood just pouring out of his head still too, right? So, so that is the history of the deadlift. But now, the man who is going to be trying to break this record, this is going down on May 2nd. Check out his YouTube. It's Hafthor Bjornsson on YouTube. And he's married to a good Canadian girl. Her name's Kelsey from Edmonton. I don't know how they make that marriage work. She's about the size of his leg. But let's take a closer look at the mountain. Who is Hafthor Bjornsson? All right. Well, most of you may remember him from this.
Children! Say it. Say her name. Say it! Elia Martel. I killed her children. Then I raped her. Then I smashed their head in like this.
All right, so that's who we're dealing with. Yeah, I told you he'd blow your mind, right? Remember him? Remember that guy? That is the mountain, Hafthor Bjornsson. Let's take a look at some of his accomplishments. So, I mean, not only has he won the world's strongest man, but he has been on the podium maybe more. I don't know about this, but maybe more than anybody else. He won in 2018, the year after Eddie Hall. Third last year when he had an injury. Second in 2017, 2016, 2014, and third in 2015, 13, 12. But I'd say right now he's largely regarded as the strongest man in history. 2018, he won the Arnold Strongman Classic. And the Arnold Strongman Classic is a little more geared towards straight up brute strength. World's Strongest Man, they tend to have more movement with weight, so it has a little bit more of a cardio component to it. The Arnold Strongman Classic, it's just brute strength heavy. And he has won the last 3 years in a row, and I don't think anybody has ever won 3 years in a row, but he has. Europe's Strongest Man, he has won 3 years in a row as well, and could have won fourth. He's won 5 of the last 6. And he could have won this year, but it was canceled, of course. So you can see he has had a stellar strongman career. This is him winning the World's Strongest Man in 2018.
Bjornsson, and he's just going to take it all in here.
This is the final rock.
Say, what the heck? Let's give it a try on the final stone, 460 pounds. And Hafthor Bjornsson with the icing on the cake. His first ever World's Strongest Man title at long last. He is at the top of the podium.
He's a big dude. So, and this is his attempt. We saw a bit of this earlier. This is his attempt last year at 501 kilos. And this, it should be said, this was at the end of a competition during the strongman competition, so he's probably not quite feeling 100%. But as I say, he was still very, very close on this. Close. Thought we had it. Looked blood pouring from his forehead, right? So that was last year, but he has been training specifically to smash this record. Him and Eddie Hall have some heat. Him and Eddie Hall have been going back and forth a little bit. Eddie Hall has said, look, man, you got to break this record. If you're going to break this record, it should be done at a global competition or, you know, an event with everything that's there, right? And he makes a good point in that respect. But Hafthor Bjornsson is locked down just like the rest of us because of this COVID. He had planned on doing this. I think he was either going to do it. I think there was a strongman competition he was either going to do it at Giants Live or he was going to do it in somewhere in Dubai or one of those places. He had planned on doing it, and he had mentioned this before the COVID lockdown. But he's intent on going through with it anyways, and good, more power to him, right? And he has said he's going to be doing it, I believe, at his gym, but they're going to make a show of the calibration of the plate so everybody can see what the weight is. They are going to have an independent judge there as well, an Icelandic strongman judge. So he's doing everything he can to make sure that this is above board and as legitimate as possible. And to imply that a guy with this kind of background and this kind of competition history would somehow cheat to get this record, I think is really, really insulting to him. I mean, he doesn't, look at him, come on. You think this guy needs to use fake plates or something like that? So, I mean, Eddie Hall did have a good point that these things should be done in certain situations, but this is not a normal year, right? I mean, and he's ready. He has been training and prepping and gearing up to do this. So he's just like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And as I say, he has been training hard. What's this? No, come on, get out of here. So this is, oh, Jesus Christ. They put me right back to the beginning here. So I'm going to show you a recent attempt, some recent training by Hafthor. He has been lifting a lot of weight in preparation for this. Yeah, this is 1,000 pounds he's doing right here. Okay. £1,000. 1,000 pounds twice. Now, just so you know, this guy is 6'9" and about 440 pounds. He's a solid dude, right? He is a big, solid dude. And I saw him at a competition. I'm a big dude, right? I'm like just under 6'2" and I don't know, 270 thereabouts. And I was next to him and I'm like, whoa, this is a big guy, man. I thought to myself, man, if this guy wanted to, he could just pick me up and rip me apart and kill me. It's kind of a vulnerable feeling, right? But yeah, no, he's a big, big dude and he is doing it. And I am calling it that he is going to break this record. You know what? I mean, a lot of people look good and they look close, but they just break down at the time when the lift comes because, man, it's so goddamn heavy, right? That's 1,100 pounds. You know, that's a huge amount to just have in your hands, right? But Ivan has made the call. And what was your call, Ivan?
He'll make it.
Ivan says he'll make it. I say he'll make it. And there is nothing on the sporting calendar. So this is going to be the event. This is going to be the event of 2020. I think this is going to draw huge numbers. Check it out. Check it out on Hafthor Bjornsson's channel on YouTube, or check it out with me because I'll be watching it and I will give you guys a rundown of what happens. All right. So we're going to do more sports. We're going to do more self-improvement, business tips, health, fitness, weight loss, and all that stuff. And for Ivan, come on, reach, Ivan. Reach for it. There we go. And everybody else, I will see you guys later.